The Sega Mega Drive is a system that I personally grew up with and I still love to play nowadays. Some of you know us as the Sega Genesis because we do have different names in different regions. But then we have so many cool ways to play but also collect nowadays. But unfortunately some of the parts when it comes to the old school Sega history, let's say, pieces of hardware, they're absolutely crazy expensive. And also I just wanted to point out, in 2023 we have one of those epic ways to play. We live in an absolutely amazing time. For example, with this Super Mini U-Box Mega Drive, where you can just play all of your 16-bit games plug and play on your television, or that's basically what they're saying on the page. This was absolutely mind-blowing to find something different. Think about if you just send it back to the 90s where you were playing your Mega Drive, you couldn't believe it. That's the thing, with technology, it goes so fast and everything is changing so rapidly, but this thing is absolutely cool. It comes with two controllers, plug and play. There is no replacement for the controls because everything has been connected straight to the dongle, so it's a little bit of a downside. But in the side we do have ourselves two controllers, the 6-button versions, so we can play every single Mega Drive or Genesis game out there. That is pretty damn cool. They also call this thing the Nopsop, or just basically a brand from AliExpress. They are making all kinds of products retro related. But in the end we can play all of our retro favorite games on the tiny stick like that. That's the only thing that we're going to need. Of course it is not like the full retro experience if you had a Mega Drive or Genesis number 2 or a Mega Drive 1. The particular thing I'm very curious about is this thing actually having good emulation, because that's actually what it is. Is it comparable with the original hardware? The audio quality, the thing, that's the problem with some of these, let's say, China devices. It looks all cool and fancy, but how far can we push it? So far I know it doesn't support any Mega CD, or I think not even 32X. Kind of weird, because I think most emulators will run both of these, let's say, systems, but they are limited basically to only 16-bit or Mega Drive. So that's the thing that we're going to get. Okay, so let's plug out my HDMI cable. And what I find always annoying about these dongles normally, that we can't plug it in. But it seems to be they fixed this issue, so we can just plug it in. But if it's deep enough, that was we're going to find out later on. Otherwise we need to use an extender. Yeah, it's not very thick, but the problem is with this particular monitor, they were having an in-depth HDMI connection, and sometimes these things are so thick that it will cover up another HDMI port. So in overall these things are not superb. But how do you connect it? Very simple. We'll plug in here the service port, but it will give me 5 volts that we're going to need for the dongle. We're going to plug in the micro USB over here. And the first attempt will be plugging it straight into the television. Let's see if it's deep enough and if it's going to work like this. So the only thing that I need to do now is plug in my cable of the monitor, and that's it. That's the only thing that we need to do. Power on the system. If everything has been set to HDMI, it will automatically boot up the dongle itself, and that's it. And there is nothing, so that means it doesn't connect because of the in-depth HDMI port. Alright guys, so let's do a quick teardown when it comes to the device. So the overall performance, I am very surprised with this. So the only thing I can do, there are no screws whatsoever. Let's get my toolkit. Let's get myself a tiny screwdriver so I can pry the plastics off. So that's the only thing that we can do at this moment. And just finding a way to click it open, because that's the way how it needs to go. Normally I will have a pry tool, but the pry tool I'm using at the moment is too big for this. So this is the only thing that we're going to get, and it's a quite interesting thing. So over here we're going to get the communication for the wireless controllers. Ah man, they send off the information of the chip, so I have no idea what they're using. But I find it just super fascinating. Stuff like this fascinates me, how tiny the technology is becoming and what you can do with it. Wireless connectivity for the controllers. Yeah, I don't know what kind of chip, but yeah, it don't need to be very powerful for 16-bit, but it runs kind of a weird Android lookalike and the operating system. Though it says here U-Box 001 version 6, so there is not a lot of information on this. So let's put this back together. Then there is not any cooling, no. Because this menu has a lot of interesting things. I really like this Android lookalike. It has nothing to do with 16-bit whatsoever. But when you're booting up, let's say, the shooting games, then we're going to get all the shooting games. And if they did a good job when it comes to categorizing this, I don't know, to be honest. It's always the question. But they got a very nice thumbnail. Let's choose fighting. It seems to be like they added a lot of fighting games. I don't know if Beavis and Butthead is a fighting game actually. But it's quite interesting to see how everything works. Here we can go into the folder itself. So basically you can boot up a game. So when it comes to the way how they added all of these games to a certain category, it looks kind of nice. Especially when it comes to the thumbnail, stuff like that. But there was another thing I wanted to show you, which is quite interesting. But when pressing select and start in the game, we're going to get finally the option that I've been waiting for. So the quick load, quick save, we have seen it before. We're even going to get 5 slots for each game. So that's interesting. But here we're going to even have the option to have a full screen wide. And then we're going to get scaling up. In other words, it's 4:3 aspect ratio. So then we're even having the options to change out the region if you're having like different files on it. So this thing basically has everything that I always like wished for, because beginning of the review session with all this plug and play, we always was missing, even with the game system, the skill option, and we didn't have stuff like this. So they're trying to improve it. It's quite fascinating to see. This sounds good, this sounds good. So fun fact, the first time I booted it up, it went completely turbo mode. So what we need to do, I want to show you what I mean with that. So the region switch does work. So it has been set to PAL, seems to be. Let's put it on NTSC. See, nothing works anymore. So you just need to reboot the game again. That's what we're going to do. Let's reboot again. So that was an issue what I had with multi-game cards back in the day. And the reason is like, we don't have the region on the right settings in combination with the file that you're basically using. But you can fix it. Where we go is basically going to the system settings and putting it back on the region that it's supposed to be. Ow. And I can say like this D-pad works perfectly. Need to get used to it, so it's more like a personal handicap. Also, the music itself sounds great. And the reason I'm saying like I can dream this soundtrack. I listen to this even in my freaking car. Yep, perfectly. I'm getting my ass kicked again. Absolutely. And the fun fact is like, it also recognizes the 6-button controller layout, so also that works fine. When technology becomes even better, faster, and just in some ways even like freaking smaller, like playing your old school games on like a plug and play is in my opinion not the best way to go to. If you just want to have the authentic experience, you need to get yourself original hardware with the original games. But again, it's more personal. What I do like about this dongle, that we do have like so many ways to play nowadays. If you can play your homebrew games or your original games, it's super easy to bring with you. You just plug it in television and you're ready to go. But when it comes to the NX engine, this mini Sega Genesis device, I must say that I was flabbergasted just the way how actually everything is. Like, it's nothing comparable with the original Sega hardware, especially when it comes of course with the emulation. Nothing beats original hardware or maybe FPGA. The things I really liked about it is just a very tiny compact way to play your games. Quick load, quick save, the controls actually play very nice and the overall experience was quite good. Also the controllers, they have like a very nice feeling, not the way like the Sega mini controller, but they're getting really close. I want to thank you all. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Nopsop plug and play device, and it would be great to see you in the next video, so consider subscribing, hit the little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.